it going? I am Ashley Rose, but you can call me Ash. We're over here at TWM Music or TWM Talks Music. And of course, we talk all kinds of things from sports entertainment, wrestling. The site's based in the UK, but I'm not in the UK. I'm here with Jackal from the Crimson Ghost. Jackal, how are you, man?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. It's pretty warm over here, but besides that, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, as a brief introduction, the Crimson Ghosts have been around since I would say I think you're documented to starting was it 2001 or 2002?
That's true. 2001, we started out as a Misfits cover band. And as time goes by, we started writing our own stuff. And in 2005, we released our first record.
So, we're gonna start off, with a few things. Yes, you did start off as a Misfits cover band, but how would you describe your sound? How would you, for people that are not familiar with your band or any jump, as far as the genre, we would classify it as what punk, horror punk, maybe just some people would just classify it as rock.
Yeah, I think it's a bit difficult to categorize that. It's I think our first album sounded pretty much like, okay, here's the Misfits album that the Misfits never wrote. So that's what we tried to do. We wanted to write a new Misfits album basically. But it became pretty much obvious that we are not satisfied with just copying another band. So we kind of evolved our own style, and I think with every record we spread out our style. Like on newest record, we have a lot of keyboards and samples and all that stuff, which we didn't have on the records before. Simply in the reason I always want to reproduce the songs on stage as well as they are on the record. So if we got a song on the record that isn't playable live, we cannot play it. I don't want to play it. So it was basically more a technical thing that we had to solve. So now we have the sound that we wanted to do. And when you look back, we got everything from really fast grindcore blast beat songs to doom songs to really happy punk tunes. There's everything in it. And I think the main name for all that you could just call horror punk, and everything is allowed, in my opinion.
You know, I would say you're probably one of the most popular horror punk bands, along with I would say Calabrese. Your name is most, it's one of the band names that I've heard like the most often throughout all the years. And surprisingly, have you ever been to the US?
No, we had a tour planned in the US. This was pretty much at that point when COVID hit. Everything was planned. We only had to book the flights. We wanted to go with Aga Gulsby from Blitzkid. Uh, we wanted to do an East Coast tour, like I think 1.5 weeks long. And just in the last moments before everything was fixed and done, COVID hits the planet and nothing was allowed anymore. So unfortunately, we never hit the US, but we want to do that.
Yeah, COVID kind of put a stop on everything. I've
Yeah.
talked to several other, people in bands. It especially, bands that rely mainly on touring. It it, it was definitely it definitely affected everyone.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but I do believe, when you finally get to the US, I think it's going to be a great turnout. Because like I said, the Crimson Ghost is like one of the bands that I've heard of for the longest time.
Well, that's good for us, but
It's honest truth. Like it's besides like Blitzkid, Calabrese, Coffin Cats, you know, your name comes up a lot.
yeah, I think one of the reasons that we come up so often is because we are a stable unit. We never had the big lineup changes. There's not like every 2 months there's a new bass player or something. The only musician we had to say goodbye to was our original drummer, but it was not that he didn't want to play with us anymore, but he was forced to leave the band because he had an injury on his wrist. so it was a bit difficult that time. But we still have a stable lineup now with old Nick. He's in the band now for I think 5 years already. We had to we had to have a replacement drummer for 2 shows because he had a surgery, but he's back in the band now, and so yeah, I think that's something that people see, recognize, and they always can say, okay, that's the Crimson Ghost. That's the same 4 guys that were there like years ago. At least that's the point I have in mind. When I see a band and I don't recognize anybody in that band anymore, it's not the same band for me, so it's not of interest.
Going back to the the new album that you just released, it does sound, I will say this, and I've told you that I've enjoyed it, I've heard it. Uh it does sound different than, I would say this, it sounds familiar, but it's nice that there's a difference in it. Like it's a good balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and of course, I wanted to have you on as well because I wanted you to talk about it. I wanted you to talk about the new album that
Yeah.
came out. It is different, but it's very familiar. So it's a good solid balance, which I really liked. Any inspirations for, the songs that came out, as far as what made you as a band decide to add these new elements like, keyboards and things like that?
Well, first off, this it sounds familiar thing. I think that's pretty much natural because when we started writing the songs, uh, there were no plans that I wanted to change that with the keyboard and everything. It was more or less the same writing process that I had on the album before. So everything was pretty much the same Crimson Ghost stuff, only with new songs. And then during COVID, I started experimenting with stuff since we weren't allowed to meet each other and have rehearsals as a band. So I tried different things, and I really liked what came out with that new piano stuff and church organs and all that stuff. The only thing I had to worry about is how would I do it live? What can I do to bring this on stage? Because we didn't want to have another member, a keyboard player or anything with us. So we had to do it with a sample player, and we had to figure out how to bring that sample player on stage without hitting it all the time, but more or less leaving it running in the background, and when the sample has to come, it will fire off. So I figured out how that works, and when I saw there are no limits anymore, I just kind of exploded. I just did whatever came to my mind, and there was some kind of goal. I wanted to make more and more and more on top. I just didn't want to have this typical 2 guitars, one bass, one voice, one drums. I just didn't want it to have that. I wanted to make it big. So that's what I tried to, and I think I succeeded.
It sounds awesome, man. I'm not even going to lie to you. I like, it sounds awesome. It totally like hit all the right spots with me, it mentally, and I love it, man. Like I absolutely love it. Like
Thank you.
I think it's so awesome. Um Interesting enough, I want to get into Fiend Force,
Mhm.
because that is I would say one of the primary parts of your music career as a band. So, for those who don't know, how would you explain what Fiend Force was, just in a summary?
Well, Fiendforce was the first horror punk label, or the only horror punk label as far as I know. Yeah, we were there for I think 3 albums it was, and then we went on to another label just to see what else could come towards us, how else somebody could help us with our stuff, and yeah. But we were for 3 records. We were on Fiendwas Records. It was back then. It was only owned by Thorsten Wilms from the other, and Jonas Nietzsche. He was more for the layout stuff. And yeah, they ran that pretty well, but we had that feeling of we had to go on. So we tried something new. And then after a few years, they canceled business, and Fiendfuss was dead, and now they're back, but it's only Torsten and Flo. So I don't know what Jonas is doing now, but yeah, Fiendfuss is back as far as I know.
Horror punk always seems to like come back. It's just, I think it's just one of the most iconic parts of, like just punk rock in general, because, you have bands like the Misfits
Yeah.
originally, and then you got like Danzig, and then, the other formations of the Misfits. Like we won't get too into that because we could talk about that all day, every day, and have a great debate about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Interesting enough, we did have a previous guest that does have a song with you on this album that I believe also was part of Fiend Force or toured with.
Oh, you're talking about Chris.
Yeah, Chris, or
Yeah.
Nimvind, as
Yeah,
people would
sure.
know him as. So what was that like as far as doing a song with them?
Um, it felt pretty natural because I worked with him so many times already in the past. On our last record, he did some stuff. Um, I did some stuff for him as well. I did a remix for a song of him. We know each other for years and years, so it was pretty easy to just exchanging ideas. And basically it was like okay, we got a song ready. That's how it always works for me. We write a song. I listen to that song when it's pre-mixed, and then I think about, okay, who could sing on that, or what does it remind me of, who would sing that song maybe. And the Succubic Night song was a song that I thought, okay, that's Chris, so let's ask him if he wants to do it. And he wanted to do the part, and he always played some guitars on that, so it was pretty awesome. I'm happy to have him on board.
Yeah, like I said, he was on. We had like a great talk about his upcoming song and a lot of other things, in regards to his career, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because he's had a very extensive career.
Oh yeah.
So now, back to, let's talk about you, Jackal. Let's talk about, what do you like? Let's talk horror movies. Let's talk, what are your interests? What are your hobbies for, the people that may not know something about you that you're into? Like, what's your favorite horror movie?
Oh well, the favorite horror movie I think still is and always will be The Thing from John Carpenter, the Kurt Russell one. I think
Oh,
that's my favorite horror movie if it comes to gore and effects and all that stuff. It's very claustrophobic, and it has a pretty awesome mood. And I think the effects, even though they were not made with a computer or anything, they are
it's
just
so
top
good.
notch.
They're
Yeah,
so good.
absolutely.
And it's that fear of isolation and survival and
Yeah, yeah,
not knowing exactly who the thing is. Not necessarily like what the thing is, but who it could be.
yeah,
It could be you. It could be anyone.
yeah. Pretty much, you could just translate it to normal society. Who's the asshole? You know?
It really is, and
Yeah,
that's based off of, I guess, opinion, because I've always said, people are going to like what they like,
yeah,
regardless of what, I may believe about one person, what you may believe about one person. We could have completely two different, you know,
yeah.
ideas as to who's
True.
what.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, that would be my favorite horror movie if it comes to gore and effects and all that stuff. But if it comes to really creepy horror movies, I think it's Paranormal Activity. This one really gave me the chills. When I saw it the first time, it was like 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. I didn't even know what
yeah.
to expect. It was really like, okay, I got this movie here. Let's just watch. And I think it was like maybe 45 minutes into the movie, I was just sitting there having the creeps and goosebumps everywhere. So yeah, this one really
So
impressed me.
you selected to watch it at 2 a.m.
It wasn't really like I wanted to do at that point. It was just, yeah, so it's a weekend, I'm still awake, still not tired, let's watch another movie. And I started that one and I was like, whoa, what the fuck.
Oh, man. Man. Any interesting stories as far as being on tour on that side of the world? Because we are in two different time zones, you and I.
Yeah. Oh, touring, that's so long ago already. I mean, the last tour that we had was in 2019, I guess. So that's so long ago. And there's always stupidest shit is happening and it's like worth a laugh. And there's always stuff that you will remember, but it's not the stupid stuff. It's more like impressions that you get, like being in a foreign country, standing on top of a mountain somewhere, looking down on Italy and all that stuff. This is something that I remember, but the weird stuff is happening all the time. Like in 1 hour, this is happening, and you think, okay, it cannot get crazier than that. And the next hour, something else happened, and you think, okay, madhouse.
I mean, that's just, day-to-day life. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
you know, I see weird shit happening all the time on the internet, but you shouldn't believe everything that's on the internet though.
That's true. That's
But
absolutely
it's
true.
but it's entertaining.
Yeah, yeah, but to a point where it hurts.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely. um, so we've gone over that. We've gone over, if you have anything interesting, tour wise, and disregard my cat. He says hello at least
Hello,
once.
cat.
That would be Draven if you hear him.
Draven? I don't hear him. I just see him sometimes.
Oh,
He's
well,
just
good.
walking
Then my mic settings are working correctly
around. Great.
because he's loud. He is very loud. Um, so we've gone over Fiend Force. What let's talk about, let's go to the basics of any conversation interview. What are your influences? Just in not necessarily just in music, but in life.
Well, mm, I think in the beginning of the Crimson Ghost, influences, of course, were the Misfits. There's no way I can deny that. Is obvious. But the more the band was existing, the more I found other inspirations, and not really from other bands, but more like I got more ideas from things that I heard on a soundtrack, or I just saw that in a movie. I heard something in a movie that is running in the background, where I thought, okay, when you have this bass line, you could actually go something different with two guitars and whatever. And this inspired me a lot, like going out of a nutshell, like not going for one direction. It has to sound like the Misfits, but it could go anywhere, and nobody is allowed to tell us what we have to sound like. It's just us. It's just me. I write the songs. I can decide what they have to sound like. So inspiration comes from everything. And when it comes to lyrics, inspiration is completely different now than it was back then. Back then, I was like watching every horror movie, trying to making a song text out of it. And today, it's more like uh, everyday's life um, is difficult enough, and then you see enough horror stuff. When you just change a few words, you can make an awesome horror text. But in fact, when you read between the lines, you can just see what happens today, what's going on in society. So actually, horror texts are not that different from just social criticism, in my opinion. Or they can be. Of course, I could sing another a zombie movie song text, but you know,
Hey, I'm not gonna lie to you, the world is frightening right now.
oh yeah, it is.
Just in general. And the fact that we have access to like so much knowledge in the world, uh, you know, it's in general society is frightening
Yeah, and
currently.
I think that's the most perverted thing at all in general, because you have so much information. Everybody could be like super intelligent and super informed, but instead everybody's like choosing the stupidest form, the stupidest information, and being like a total dick. I don't get it why people choose to be stupid. I mean, they can have all the information in the world and they are still stupid, or most of them.
You know, back in the day when I was, like when I was in my 20s, my early 20s, I used to work at a tattoo shop as a body piercer. And I remember uh my boss, he had his aftercare sheet that he's had for ages for piercing, which is like, the basics, wash with antibacterial soap, et cetera, et cetera. And I had asked him, like, why do we only give them, you know, the aftercare instructions just on a paper that's like this big without like actually going over everything. And he had told me, simple fact is, Ashley, people are stupid. So you have to make it as simple as possible. Not saying that I'm greater thou or, greater than anyone in that aspect, but I always equate it to that when I tell people. Like that is the most prominent thing that always stands out to me anytime, like, you just have to be as to the point and simple as possible. I think when it comes to, just sharing as much as you can with people. But at the same time, people can receive it completely inaccurate as well, even something so simple. So,
Yeah.
and that's the world we live in.
And sometimes I have the impression that people choose to understand it the wrong way or go the wrong way. It just simply because they can choose what way they want to go, they go the wrong way just because. Maybe they think they're rebels or something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of, like I said, you can say that you like mustard and someone would take offense that you hate, like, ketchup.
Yeah.
Even though you didn't say anything in reference to it at all. But I mean, it's like I said, world's a crazy place right now. So
yeah, and everybody's offended all the time about everything.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I try, not to be. I mean,
It's not easy sometimes.
yeah. So we've gone over the world. Are you a reader? You like books? Do you read?
Yeah, I try to, let's say it that way.
You partake
I
in
like
the book?
I really like reading. Really like to take the time to read, but most of the time I really like there's stuff in my head that I have to do this, I have to do that, and I have to go through that. Oh, and tomorrow I have to think about this and that. So it's always something going on in my head, and I just cannot calm down enough to have a just decent reading time. It's seldom, really seldom, but I like when I get the time, I really like it.
Yeah, it's I can relate. Like I said, I have a busy schedule, so I understand. We get sidetracked on just like I said, everything. It's almost like even after COVID happened, like I mean, there's still cases of it around. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
sure.
Um, but once it slowed down, it almost feels like life is just picking up faster, like at a quicker pace to like almost trying to like almost play catch up with everything.
I think it's not necessarily the speed that everything happens with, but everything is happening at the same time.
There you go.
That's what I feel like. No matter where you go on the weekend, everywhere are some shows and concerts and whatnot. I think this is way more than before COVID, and sometimes it's for us as a band, it's really difficult to get a show at all right now because every bigger band that has to reschedule their shows, they are playing now, and they are like long lists for every club, like when the next band will come, and booking lists are so long and you have to wait for months and months until you can have a show at all. So it's not really easy right now.
Yeah, it's we've gone over that. We've gone over, movies. We've definitely gone over the new album. So who would you like to collaborate with? I mean, we know you collaborated with Vin, so anyone else you'd be interested in?
Yeah, well, we collaborated with a lot of people on that new album. I mean, Gouldsby from Blitzkid was on it, and TB was on it. We had Slaughterlamp from Hellgreaser on that. We have Pete Nine from Wolfskull. So there were a lot of guests on that one. The only person that didn't even respond, and I hope you can hear that and respond the next time, is the singer from Calabrese. I wanted to have him on that album as well, but didn't really work out. Maybe next time.
Singer who, Bobby? Is it
I
Bobby?
think it was Bobby. Yeah,
Bobby. Because I know Jimmy's not in the band anymore. I think
yeah,
Jimmy
I know that. Yeah,
stepped away. And who we all greatly miss, by the way. So but you know, that's cool. I haven't had Calabrese on at all, but I would welcome them, of course. But they're incredibly busy, I can imagine.
yeah, I guess so.
I was like, I
It's
mean,
not easy.
it's not easy. But yeah, hopefully, you know, maybe, you know, Bobby will come on. I would love to hear that. I would love to see, you know, like at least what type of sound it would be, and as well as like what type of track it would be. I think
Yeah,
it'd be really cool.
but when it goes outside of horror punk, I really would like to work with Devin Townsend. That would be a guy who I would like to work with, just to see how much of a madman he really is. If I can understand what he would do with the music at all, if we would be able to work together, that would be something interesting to do. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we, you know, we close out here, um, anything that you want to spread, you know, as far as with your fans, anything you want to share, anything you want to say?
Well, first of all, of course, check out a new album, Forevermore. You can find that everywhere on Spotify, Deezer, Bandcamp, where not, on YouTube as well. And take a look on October and November, because the Crimson Ghost will go on tour for 2 weeks. Cannot really say with who this will be, but it is somebody who you want to see live. I'm sure about that.
All right. So October, so around Halloween. Perfect time.
Around Halloween, yep.
Perfect timing. That's
Yes,
lovely.
it is. It is.
Perfect timing. Uh as far as I, you know, I'm clearly tattooed. So what you got going on there?
Oh, and actually, this is pretty new for myself. I got them like 3 or 4 months ago. We got Moth from Silence of the Lambs, Charo from Evil Dead, Fred Krueger, Jason Voorhees, and Belial from Basket Case. So there's a lot of room on this side here, and I think the Thing will definitely be on there.
Ah, very cool.
One
Very
form of
cool.
it, yeah.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Well, you know, thank you for being on. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I was like very hesitant to reach out. So I was kind of glad, you know,
Why that?
I I was like, I don't know why. Like, and also you know, I like to spread my interviews out like so many weeks between, you know, doing like my other interviews and then gradually like migrating into like my music interviews.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I was just I was nervous. I was like, yeah, you know, like should I reach out? Should I not? So, but thank you. Thank you so much for being on. And like I said, I love the new album. I think it's cool. I think it's
Thank you.
definitely something that's it's very needed right now. It very it's you know, it like touches all the right nerves mentally when it comes
Cool.
to sound. So I love it, man. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'll
Tell
link
your
all
friends about it.
absolutely, man. I'll link everything too. So here, so thanks for coming
Thank you.
on, everyone. Have a good day or night, wherever.